You lie so much. You and Mkhwanazi will soon join MATLALA in CMAX. Evidence leader advocate Baloyi blasts Mrs. Linda. Please have mercy, I have children at home. Mrs. Linda broke down in tears. Tricky moment when Linda attempted to whitewash Mkhwanazi and justify his promotion, but her efforts to avoid disciplinary action backfire badly. Zanzi, catch this epic moment.
On the legal opinion, and I think we've all learned from that.
I'm trying to understand your evidence and the chronology or sequence that you put. You became involved with this matter, and you became aware that Chief Mapiyeye has written a letter where he says the investigation is withdrawn or something to that effect. You became aware of that. So at which point do you recognize there are irregularities? That's why I'm asking you, what are the irregularities you're referring to? And at which, maybe let me add a second thing, at which point do you say you became aware of irregularities?
I became aware of all the irregularities after we've done the forensic, that indeed we could have managed this matter better.
Hold on about managing it better. When is that? That after when you say after the forensic report, when is that?
It was in June 2024, but Chair, maybe let me rephrase this. When I said let's have a forensic report done, surely we did something wrong. I agree that with the current charges that we have, you could not just say, I'm stopping the process. And understanding that the chief stopped the process based on frustrations, that's number one. Number two, there's also a legal opinion.
No, he didn't stop the investigation. That's not his evidence. Let's not restate his evidence incorrectly. His evidence is he stopped because he was instructed, not because of frustrations. He says, I was instructed to stop.
Yes, I'm correcting myself. In his letter, though, he did say, Chief Mapiyeye, I'm stopping. But you correct in other evidence, he did say he was instructed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm still interested in, or I still need to hear you. What are the frustrations, rather, what are the irregularities that you say you later picked up and then you ordered a forensic investigation?
Is how the whole process was conducted.
No, but you knew how it was conducted. You knew there's a letter from the chief which says I'm withdrawing the investigation. And the conversation that Mr. Gxasheka is having with you is, these are serious charges. You are head of HR. And then I tag on. You see a letter from the chief that says, I've stopped the investigation on these serious charges. You are head of HR. At that point, what do you do about it?
When I got to know about stopping of the investigation, as I say, I started collating information after the anonymous letter from Mr. That says we favored the city manager and the CFO, they favored Julius. Then when I start collating information, as much as it wasn't enough, I've realized files were everywhere else except in HR. Then I realized there's a problem here. And hence then I instituted that a forensic must be embarked upon. Number two, in the meeting we had with this accounting officer, we also felt that let's change even the disciplinary procedure so that HR and legal take full accountability. Remember, before that, I was not fully accountable. The main responsibility I had was more suspensions. Before and after that, other people are involved. In Mr. Ngceza's statement, he also confirms that certain things were happening at an EMPD space without him being involved. However, there are decisions between Mr. Ngceza and myself that we've made.
Let me stop you, Ms. Gxasheka. The matter is now with human resources. It's now with human resources. That's why Mr. Ngceza is there. That's your department at that point. So the references to things were happening at EMPD don't quite work here because you've agreed to this disciplinary process right? At the beginning, you agree to it, you agree to the suspension. You have one of your subordinates, and I think you say he was your direct subordinate, who is now providing the support to EMPD. You become aware that Chief Mapiyeye has written a letter which says the investigation is withdrawn or it is stopped, whatever that letter said. But you are aware this is about very serious charges. All five, not all six of them, not just charge 4. All 6 of them are very serious charges. You are a head of HR. You have your subordinate who reports to you, who's dealing with this. You do nothing about it. You're happy to let it be. And I'm trying to understand that. You're the most senior person in HR. You're head of department. Employee relations falls under you. Discipline falls under you. And you do nothing about it. And then you say, I ordered a forensic investigation. That can be a proper answer for this. If it was because you were instructed not to do anything about it, it would be a different conversation with you. It's either that or you folded your hands and did nothing about it.
Thank you, Chair. I hope we'll find each other, Commissioner Baloyi. As I said that the minute this matter came to our attention, I'll try and be slow. After the anonymous email, we were all called to account. I think if you read my statement, you read Chief Mapiyeye's statement and Xolani, we're all called and say, answer, what happened? Roughly, things were explained. That is in August, if I'm not mistaken, around July, August. And immediately after that, the same day, if I'm not mistaken, to show how serious I was with this, I've changed the delegations based on the discussion we had with Dr. Mkhwanazi. After that, I instituted a forensic. The stopping of the investigation, Chair, I thought we discussed it yesterday, that it happened between Dr. Mkhwanazi, Advocate Kemi, and Chief Mapiyeye. I did speak to that I was not involved in those. When I started putting everything together, it's around August, that what happened here, what happened there, what happened there. I don't know if I'm answering you.
No, for now.
And it's after the instruction in relation to the forensic report. And in that context, Brigadier Mkhwanazi applies for promotion. And can you take us through this document, because it's not clear to me. I see you were on the panel, I see Chief Mapiyeye was on the panel. There's a Ms. Zanele Katembo, who also appears to have been on the panel. Who is she?
Your mic, please.
Zanele Katembo was an HOD for Shreke, that it's Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture. That was her role, I think, at that time. Thank you, Chair.
And Advocate Behari was also on the panel, although it seems that he wasn't present at the interview. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there was someone from HR Secretariat, but she didn't play a role in the interviews. The upshot of the interview was that a recommendation was made that Brigadier Mkhwanazi should be promoted to the post of Deputy Chief of Police Specialized Services. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, I simply want to ask you, in a context where charges of the nature that had been laid against Brigadier Mkhwanazi were still out there, hadn't been resolved. why did you see fit to recommend him for promotion to a more senior position?
As I say, by that time, Chair, it was clear that the process of the DC is not going to continue. And obviously the employee has been exonerated, given a letter that the process is not continuing.
Sorry,
And
can I interrupt there? The employee was never exonerated. No one ever said you have been found not guilty of any of these charges. At best, what happened was that the process of proceeding with the charges was frustrated through a series of, well, at best, gross inefficiencies, at worst, deliberate sabotage. There was no exoneration.
I'll rephrase. Remember, this is an employee who's sitting with a letter that says we're no longer continuing with the investigation process and whatever and whatever.
But
And
sorry,
he
can
has
I
applied
take
for
you
the
up? Sorry, can I
position.
come in there as well? Because that letter says we're no longer we're no longer continuing with the investigation process. But in fact, the investigation process had been finished by then. There was the investigation was over. What was now needing to happen was a disciplinary hearing. There's no need for further investigation, just for a hearing to take place.
Yes, he was also told, go back to your substantive post, continue with your work. So firstly, for the employee to apply the position, the understanding is that this DC is not continuing. And at that time, there was no disciplinary hearing that is continuing. As I say, based on my initial testimony, my earlier testimony, and the legal opinion, if it was then done by then, I can't recall. So we could not prejudice the employee in this particular time. Hence, he applied as well like everybody else.
Sorry, which legal opinion said that you could not proceed in, I think it was October 2023?
As I say, if I recall events, there was a legal opinion, I think we discussed it, that said there are no fraud issues against him. Maybe it's the way I'm putting it. So at this point in time, the mere fact that we continue, there was no disciplinary process that is continuing. Chair, thank you.
You see, whether or not there was a disciplinary process pending is a separate question from whether this applicant is a fit and proper person for this promotion. And I struggle with the notion that someone against whom allegations of that nature have been leveled and have reached the point of proceeding to a hearing only for a charge sheet not to be served is fit and proper to be a deputy head of police. What's your response to that?
I hear the inference on your side. On my side, in terms of the procedure, there was no DC that was happening, and therefore there will be no reason to say we are not shortlisting you because you are not meeting. I mean, there's a pending DC because clearly there was no pending DC.
There was a directive by IPID that he should be charged. And that directive is binding on the city of Ekurhuleni. So,
I didn't see it that time.
but you say the opinion exonerated him. That opinion is the opinion that said IPID must be disregarded. Which other opinion are you referring to?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, so that's why I'm saying there was a directive by IPID. And that opinion was responding to the directive. So you cannot say there was nothing pending. There was a pending directive by IPID. The fact that Ekurhuleni did not comply with it does not mean there was no pending directive by IPID that Mkhwanazi should be disciplined.
I hear you, Chair. Thank you. Would have still done better. I'm taking that. But I'm still appealing that hopefully when you look at this matter in its entirety, we will see how the outcomes come out. And also one can say that this is a process where continuous improvement are going to be taken seriously, and we can do better next time. It's just difficult to agree that you just fully contributed, you had an intention not to discipline. It might look that way, but I want to say it was never my intention. Thank you.
And it's not a case of just Julius Mkhwanazi being protected. It's a case of him also being advanced because he was promoted. And with that promotion, there was you motivating that his salary be increased by 200,000 rands. So it wasn't just being protected at the position where he was. It was a case of you knowing that there were serious allegations because the forensic people who conducted the forensic investigation, they say one of the documents given to them is the charge sheet, which means by August you knew what the charges were against Julius Mkhwanazi. In October, when you support his promotion, you are aware that IPID independently has found that he's guilty of fraud and corruption and must be charged internally. And knowing those things, you still say this person is suitable for promotion to Deputy Chief of Police and an even better salary, some 200 plus over and above what he earned before. Now that is serious.
Let me make a correction. I'm not sure when I got to know about the IPID reports and the legal opinion. I said earlier on I didn't have the dates. But one thing that came to my attention in August, it was obviously the charges and the stopping of the DC, and I said already I'm taking brunt of that. We could have made better judgment. Despite that there were instructions that were made, we could still have made better judgment. On the promotion, I'm still going to say that when the charges are not proven, it becomes difficult if you already shortlisted and recommended the person for promotion. On the issue of the salary, on the issue of the salary review, when an employee is a permanent employee, he's got certain benefits, employer contribution. So when you count the breakdown, it becomes different. And what, when you now put them on a total cost, when you FTC, you are putting a total cost. And number two, what we normally consider is the issue of the risk embedded, that now we are on a 5-year contract. Deputy Chief of Police Mkhwanazi was not the only person who has requested his salary to be looked at when he becomes a divisional head, convert from permanent to be divisional head. Majority of divisional heads, if I'm not mistaken, they do make that submission. And it does get considered, I'm sure 99% of them. And one thing we've picked up as an anomaly in the city is that the gap between the senior executive manager and the divisional head, the salary. In fact, in other instances, the senior executive manager will earn more than a divisional head. It's an anomaly that we're dealing with right now. So his salary review, it goes with a promotion that we could have done better. But again, you could not prejudice him in terms of the salary review. As I say that, even Rivers Peace got a salary review. Xolani Ngceza got a salary review. I got a salary review, and so many people. And I say main issue, it must be noted, is because of the overlap in the salaries between that lower level and the divisional head. What I remain with, allegations, I got to know about them in August. October we did interview, but they were not concluded. And we're learning from that we shouldn't have even shortlisted, we should not even interviewed. I did say let's re-advertise, but because Chief didn't want to extend Mzolo. If you check the events, the way I was trying to assist, I'm saying in November, I think we interviewed, we shortlisted in September, We interviewed in October, I can't remember now the dates. In November, I'm saying, Chief, let's extend. Because there's so many processes to be followed. Even the forensic process, Chair, I wouldn't have known it will take that long. So I have this thing that if maybe we did extend the contract of Mr. Mzolo, maybe again we won't be here, Chair.
Can I stop you there, because I think the question was limited. Now you are dealing.
Your email was on 5 April at 1:46 p.m. The next email is from Julius Mkhwanazi, and that's on the same day at 4:21 p.m. And he responds, although your email was addressed to Chief Mapiyeye and Deputy Chief Spiss, Julius Mkhwanazi responds directly to the email and says, "Good afternoon, colleagues," responding directly to you. I have set up a team within operation to verify the fingerprints as submitted to us by Deputy Chief Revo Spiss and Deputy Director Vanda van Rooyen. We've discovered that this is the old criminal record data. Some of the people on no retirement, I'm not sure what that means, cleared by the courts, resigned. And then he says, I suggest we start the process of verification afresh so we get the correct data of criminal record for every employee. As the HOD was explaining, this is going to affect the whole city. It will be wise if we start with the correct and clean data. As operations, we're combat ready to start the process since we're the most affected one according to this old criminal record. So if I understand correctly, he's saying this data is not accurate. Some of it is incorrect. We need to start from scratch. And because it's my section that is most affected according to the existing data, let my section take responsibility for checking getting proper fingerprints. Is that a fair summary of what he is saying?
That was my understanding as well, Chair. Thank you.
You then responded the following day, and that is at page 2064. And you respond to his letter on Saturday, the 6th of April, 7 in the morning. Please note this is your EMPD process and concur that it must be done seamlessly. To ensure accuracy at all times, employees must be vetted and a final outcomes report must ensure that the data provided is correct, current, accurate, valid and reliable and legally and relevant. Legally, all the correct processes and SOPs must be observed and adhered to. Please keep the accounting officer and HR informed of the process to embark upon and timeframes by rather providing a comprehensive report to this whole process where possible. So do you want to explain your response here?
Thank you, Chair. My response is exactly what I've said yesterday and today, Chair, that I've said in our meeting, it's their process. They've got capacity, they assist the city anyway. They must run with it. And we already provided guidance in terms of how it should be done and so forth. And all we need is a seamless process. And obviously, Chief is leading the department. And my communique specifically, it talks to the Chief and the senior management, but specifically to the Chief. And eventually, based on our agreement previously, was that keep us informed as we embark on the process, because once it's concluded, then it also determines the labor relations processes that we must commence with, and be able to assist them where HR gets to start to be involved. Thank you.
Then there seems to have been a delay of a full year, because the next email in the chain is at page 2063, the middle of the page. And it's Sunday, April the 6th, but now it's 2025, not 2024. And you write to Julius Mkhwanazi saying, "Dear Acting Chief, this is the issue the councillor is referring to. We need to act on this before they use it against HR and EMPD." And below, what you're doing is you are forwarding your last email of 6 April 2024, exactly a year ago, the "Dear colleagues, please note this is your EMPD process." So it seems to me, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that what had happened is that the matter had sometime later been raised in council, closer to April the 6th, 2025, and at that point you went back to Julius Mkhwanazi and said, "We need to act on this. If we don't, they're going to use it against our departments. The councillors are going to take action against our departments." Is that correct?
If I recall events, it might not have necessarily been the council meeting, but where we report majority of our issues is at OCMOL. So it might have been the OCMOL, the structure I've discussed yesterday.
Sorry, can you just explain that structure?
Is the oversight of the Executive, Mayor and Legislature Offices Committee. So they've been following up on majority of EMPD issues. I think that's where we get to engage about EMPD issues. I think it could have been Councillor Berg. It was where it was discussed. And it was not for the first time. They kept on discussing these issues. And where it would have been in council as well, it would have been the EMPD MMC